Ah, Smoggy, come inside. Look at this place. Sealed windows, comfy couch, fresh carpet. No pollution is here. Mmm. Mmm. Breezy, I hate to break it to you, but indoor air can actually be more polluted than outdoor air. Wait, what? There's no smokestacks in my living room. You don't need a smokestack. Pollution indoors comes from three main sources: natural sources, human-made materials, and combustion. Okay, now I'm nervous. What kind of natural pollution could be in my house? Ever heard of radon gas? No. Should I have? Radon comes from radioactive uranium in rocks and soil. It can seep into homes through cracks in the foundation. Wait. So pollution can come from the ground? Exactly. And radon exposure is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. Okay, that's terrifying. And that's just one example. Furniture and carpets release VOCs, volatile organic compounds. Old paint can contain lead, and gas stoves can produce carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide, isn't that one that's colorless and odorless? Yup. It's an asphyxiant. It blocks oxygen from reaching your cells. So basically, pollution might be hiding in my couch, walls, and kitchen appliances. Exactly. Okay, new plan. I'm opening a window and buying a radon test kit. Now you're thinking like an environmental scientist. Okay, as we just heard from Breezy and Smoggy, indoor air can be pretty bad. It can be pretty nasty, depending on the situation, and it can even cause cancer, as we'll see with radon gas. Um, but lucky in California, we'll see we are fortunate in that we live a lot of times out of the year in outdoor temperature that we can open the windows and we won't either freeze to death or die of heat exposure. So let's get into it. Broadly looking air pollution here, we see a lot of different things on this chart. Painting products, cleaning products, CO2 gas from any kind of combustion like cooking, more cleaning products. It looks like a virus there, so we gotta watch out for that. In the bathroom, mold growing, different microbes. Ooh, who likes to light candles? And then pet dander. Oh, I have a lot of cats in my house, and there's cat fur dander everywhere. So a lot of things can get you. So carbon monoxide, you may have heard, you should have hopefully a carbon monoxide detector in your house, but it's categorized as an asphyxiant. Asphyxiant. And that basically means it can suffocate you. Now, when we think about being suffocated, we think about, something covering our mouth and nose, but this is a cellular asphyxiant. We'll see in the next slide. It basically prevents oxygen from getting to your cells. But a lot of different, the main one could be in our houses here would be gas appliances. Sometimes people will burn also, say, a propane stove or barbecue in an enclosed area that's not well ventilated. So let me add that. Barbecue, BBQ, propane. Sometimes if it gets cold or if it gets rainy, people will bring the barbecue in the garage where, say, the garage door is open, but not too well ventilated. So that is definite no. We never want to barbecue in any kind of enclosed areas. Always got to be completely outside. But we see some other sources right there. So this is what's happening. Normally, oxygen, your cells are exposed to oxygen. That goes into your blood, your capillaries, and then gets absorbed into your red blood cells. What happens if you're exposed to carbon monoxide? It sticks much more strongly to your red blood cells, to the um, you have this protein on your red blood cells called hemoglobin, and it has an affinity for oxygen. It likes to stick to oxygen, but it prefers carbon monoxide, unfortunately. Sticks more strongly to the carbon monoxide. So, if you are exposed to carbon monoxide, all your red blood cells, instead of being filled with oxygen, they'll be filled with carbon monoxide, which your body can't use. So your cells just get starved of oxygen, and particularly in your brain, those are the most sensitive. So people get a headache, dizzy, lightheaded, feel tired. So those are all things that happen a lot to us. So it can be difficult to see those symptoms for what they are. But tragically, a lot of people just pass out and just never wake up again if they're exposed to too much carbon monoxide. So having a carbon monoxide detector is critical. So let me write that down. CO detector. And a lot, having, opening windows when you can is good, depending on if you're in an area where the air outside is relatively clean. If you're near freeways or roads, that can be dicey. But getting ventilation in your house is a good thing when it's deemed safe. So yes, get a detector if you don't have one, and be aware of those symptoms. Remember, we've been talking a lot about particulates, which are not gas, but actual solid particles. One of the big ones that's concerning is asbestos, which we see below. It's a mineral, a rock, basically, and it can make these fibers, and it's very fire resistant. So that's great in a lot of ways because it helps things catching on fire and killing us that way. But if it's in the materials that are in our buildings, it can enter our lungs and eventually cause cancer. Mesothelioma, you've probably heard of. There's a lot of ads around town and everything on billboards and other places where people are suing companies because of that they or their family members are getting mesothelioma. So dust just in there, and smoke. Now this is just not when I was a kid. You're looking at cigarettes, but now cigarettes. Forget about that. So cigarettes, but also it's important to be aware of vapes. Vapes use a combustion mechanism where smoke is created, particulates. That's just as bad. People swear. I've heard people talk, oh, I vape and I don't have breathing problems anymore. Those people are deluding themselves, and probably they're trying to sell something like a vaping product. So be very careful. It's never healthy to bring any kind of vapor or any kind of substance into your lungs unless it's prescribed by a medical professional. Under very extreme circumstances, people with lung ailments can get vaporizers for different medicines. That's a different story. If a doctor at a medical facility has not prescribed something to you, don't believe somebody who's trying to say that's going to be helpful. So any kind of vaping, cigarettes, marijuana smoke, there is a myth that marijuana is safer than cigarettes, but any kind of smoke into your lungs is a bad thing. So let's kind of go take a tour for asbestos exposure. Okay. Issues, we got cancer of the esophagus. That's the tube that takes food to your stomach from your mouth whenever anything is inhaled or swallowed. Or actually, yeah, that's the esophagus. Or actually, no, that's good. This is the larynx. The voice box, as you can tell, also in this area. The nose and mouth, the first point of exposure. Anything swallowed or drank that has asbestos can expose that. Now, a particular, part of the lung that that asbestos is known to affect is called the pleural membrane. And that is particular to mesothelioma. So a pleural membrane cancer is specific. And just overall lung tissue, all of it can be affected by asbestos. Scar tissue, painful to breathe. Think about all the times you're breathing. You don't want to have issues with that. So there are natural, man-made sources. And this last thing is combustion. We've talked a lot about combustion in terms of fossil fuel and acid rain and so forth. These are all, people don't think about the stove as causing issues, but it can. Okay, natural, man-made combustion. And the natural sources, I mentioned before, radon gas. That may be something you may not have heard of. We don't hear about so much here. As I said earlier, we have the luxury of having a climate where we can ventilate a little easier than some places. So, natural sources. Radon, mold. And you've heard of mold growing in damp places, typically in bathrooms, and then just regular old dust. Now, this issue radon came up. I'm looking. We at Jordan, we're about right here. Okay, now in this area we see low potential for issues with radon. You can see on this chart, this green is low. So we're pretty good. But look at this. This is Palos Verdes. It's like a little hot spot. So I was thinking, what is going on there? And it's because we're like on a sediment layer, but they're on top of a marine layer. So this marine layer that PV is on top of has a layer that just has a lot of uranium in it. So uranium deposits in that one section. So uranium is one of these materials that over time decomposes and creates radon gas. So marine layer from the ocean, and then fracturing in the shale in that area. So if you look at over the if we look at over the entire United States, you can see some hot spots. In California, it's pretty calm. The Central Coast, though, does have some issues with radon up past Santa Barbara and so forth. But we have kind of in the Midwest and some parts in the East, Appalachia. But in general, like the South, pretty unaffected by radon gas. Okay, some human-made indoor air pollution. We got insulation there to help keep your house either warm or cool. Volatile organic compounds that we've talked about, those are anything you smell that you use, probably a volatile organic compound. Any kind of scent, lotion, carpets, rug. Here we got furniture. If you ever get new furniture, you smell all the glue and all the chemicals that went into that paneling, kind of like wall paneling, like wood paneling. Carpets, that's something you definitely go to a hardware store, Home Depot or Lowe's, and go to the carpet section. You can smell those VOCs. There's something called formaldehyde that you may have heard about in science. You used to have preserve animals specimens in formaldehyde, and that stuff leaks out and can be cancerous. Uh, Formaldehyde used in building materials is new buildings, probably formaldehyde in their upholstery, carpeting, and then lead. We could still have some lead hanging around because there are definitely structures from it's 1978. 1978 when lead was banned from paints. So anything painted before that, or somebody may have had some paint laying around from before and was using it. They said, I'm going to use my lead paint. But typically, say 1980, if it was painted, probably doesn't have lead paint in it. But there's layers, okay? So we got all different ways. Look at this diagram, just kind of showing this. I'm not sure what that is right there. I don't know, but we definitely got paint. Maybe that's like a vaporizer, cooking. Got a lot of stuff from the garage, exhaust, cleaning supplies. That might be air freshener. I don't know. Okay, but pollution from combustion we see right here. Carbon monoxide we've heard of before. Touched on that. Monoxide, nicotine from regular cigarettes. Oh, actually no. That is I need. Let's see. That needs to be nitrogen oxides. That's typically going to be getting in from outside. Sulfur dioxide, particulates, and tobacco smoke. Oh yeah, radon, back to radon. It's naturally occurring, but that's a good point because a lot of times people think, oh, it's natural, it's got to be good for you. No, 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 no. Do not fall down that trap. Just because it's natural does not mean it's good for you. Radon gas is definitely not good for you. And as we mentioned before, it's from uranium. And that's found everywhere. Okay, rocks and soils all across the land. Um, yeah, and it seeps through gaps, pores, cracks, pipes that go underground. So just look at this. These are all the ways. Now, you're very unlikely to use well water around here. But if you're in a more rural area, that is a concern. So it can infiltrate. Moves up through the soil, goes through the basement, cracks in the walls, foundation. There's always cracks there, and it can be dissolved in the water you're getting. Now, if you're on a well, can be a much higher risk. We do have some wells in the Central Valley, not so much for drinking water, but for agriculture. So yeah, if you're in an area like in PV, Palos Verdes, definitely should be tested. And every house can be different based on the exact kind of rock they're sitting on and the exact kind of cracks that are in their house. Okay, so that exposure can cause lung cancer. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer in America. Cigarette smoke is still number one, but radon is right behind it. And it's because that radioactive, that extra energy from the radon just damages DNA, causes problems. So you should be able to look at a diagram like this and kind of deal with this question. If homes in colder regions tend to have higher radon concentrations, what best explains this pattern that we see? Indoor radon concentration. Now we saw earlier it can be kind of scattered whether or not an area has radon gas. There's not a super clear pattern. We can get radon exposure, not a whole lot in the south. The west is less. There is more in the upper Midwest. The Midwest is a big region. The Northeast is a little mixed. So if you look at this, the most reasoned explanation is C. It's all about that sealing of the house. Okay, if it's sealed up more tightly, if there are cracks, it's more likely to build up radon and then become an issue where that concentration is high enough to cause damage to you. Okay, so indoor air pollution can be an overlooked thing, but we need to be aware of it and just take into account, you know, carbon monoxide in your home, mold in your home, funny smells in your home, any kind of scent you're using definitely can cause irritation and particulates in the air you're breathing. And just be aware, ventilation is a good thing. The Germans have a tradition where all throughout the year they just open up their windows. No matter how cold it is, they open up their windows and just let the air circulate. So I don't think that's a bad idea. So definitely be aware of your home environment, your indoor air, and ventilate as much as you can.